أعزائي المشاهدين في كل مكان، السلام عليكم وأنعمتم صباحا ومساء. نرحب بكم في الحلقة 24 من تاريخ الصراع العربي الإسرائيلي، تقدمة المركز العربي الأمريكي للثقافة والفنون. ويشرفني أن يساعدني ويقدم هذه الحلقة معي الدكتور سعادة السفير دكتور علي عجمي، وهو الآن خارج الأراضي الوطن الأم والوطن الثاني. ومعنا أيضا في الاستوديو السيدة روان، وسوف تقدم لنا شهادة حية عن تجربتها الشخصية مع تجربتها الشخصية في العمل الشبابي المسيحي في فلسطين المحتلة. السيدة روان تعرف عن نفسها بالشكل التالي. This actually episode we will be doing in English today, and we will have additional episodes in the future with Rowan in Arabic. But this topic of Christian youth in Palestine, resilience and threats, will be tackled in English today. Rowan says, since 2005, I have been actively engaged in Palestinian community development projects, gaining first-hand experience in both fieldwork and administrative roles. This practical engagement provided valuable insights into pressing community needs. By collaborating with NGOs, INGOs, and government sectors, I conducted thorough assessments of community requirements, shaping my strategic approach. Throughout my career, I have progressed through roles in administrative leadership, international lobbying, field coordination, and partnership development on national and international scales. A consistent thread in my work has been a human rights-centered approach, advocating for marginalized communities and empowering individuals to improve their circumstances. From 2006 onwards, I have dedicated myself to volunteering, focusing particularly on the Palestinian Christian Youth Movement within the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem. In March 2016, I undertook the role of General Secretary and Middle East Coordinator. My mission involved strengthening the skills and engagement of Christian youth and young adults across the nation. Key aspects of my responsibilities included bolstering national leadership teams, improving youth and children program, conducting ongoing evaluations at local and global levels, and delivering training sessions and representing regional youth at national and international forums. From roots of faith, Rowan has walked through the Christian youth movement in Palestine. First, as a person who has grown up in that area with all the struggles and challenges that come with that, to becoming an active community member, trying to empower other youth, she has witnessed what has taken place in the occupied land and continues to take place there. With me today to discuss her first-hand experience and eyewitness is Rowan. Rowan, you may give us a little introduction to your experience in Palestine.
Thank you, Sim. As a Christian from Palestine, first I have to say something about the term Christian. Back in Palestine and in Arabic, when we say Christian, we mean all denominations. So it's like follower of Christ, and we don't mean a specific denomination. So it includes all traditional churches or Eastern churches, I must say. And so as a Christian Palestinian living in such circumstances, you go through a lot of inner challenges within yourself and within the reality that you live in. I grew up in several places, like in Jerusalem, of course, East Jerusalem. And my ancestors also go back to a small Christian village. And I was exposed to Christian reality since a young age in Palestine. But also I had a lot of involvement within the community itself, which is not a route that is taken by many Christians, unfortunately. But the awareness is increasing to be more and more involved in society. So I have a background psychology, my BA from America, and international development and masters. And in between also, I worked a lot with several NGOs that had a lot to do with working in youth and children for some reason. It's like a calling in my life. So I got involved in working with youth and children, even if in my professional life, and of course, community-wise. So Christian Muslims within the Palestinian society. And in between also, I took like some certificate from social emotional training, they call it, from Sweden, that I had to apply for about 5-6 years in Palestine when I started my professional life, which I had to work with and accommodate in to a way that can be used or worked with our Palestinian children that live a different reality than the Swedish child, for example. So this gave me a huge insight of my people. So when I grew up, of course, under a lot of, now we will get into it, regular life of a child. In Palestine, I was born in Jerusalem, so I was raised as Palestinian child, and then youth. Then I grew up into being drawn to help and volunteer. And volunteer and help in the Palestinian society, it's a strong culture until today. And then with God's grace, I took on a higher level of commitment, and that brought with it a lot of responsibility, of course, and balance that I had to overtake in between my faith as a Christian, living in such a conflict. And I don't like to say minority. We don't use it. We don't like to use this word as Christians, because we believe that we started from there. So it's like we usually maybe use the term the living stone.
Mhm.
So
Before we go into your adult life experience,
right.
I wanted to know how is it as a child growing up in Jerusalem, a Christian child, being raised in Jerusalem. This is the land of your ancestors for centuries and centuries to go. It's the holiest land in Christianity. And you have the deep roots in that city. That this is there is no one more than you that can say this is my city. How was growing up and under the occupation in Palestine, seeing the Israeli occupation regulations and moves that always put more pressure on the inhabitants of the Jerusalem, especially East Jerusalem. Describe your childhood for us?
I mean, I'm one of those people who had the privilege actually to experience life in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. And growing up, I grew up as any Palestinian child within these circumstances, right? Before being a Christian. And then being a Christian is a different matter. So you grow up with a lot of influences here and there. I remember even giving us some courses at school that has to do with our reconciliation with the situation that we live in. Sometimes I do remember, as talking about my Christian faith in Jerusalem, one of my favorite memories. I used to go to the Holy Sepulchre, walk there, and it was like my playground. So as youngsters, we used to hide and seek there and spend a lot of hours inside this holy church. So we grew up with it as our home, our safe place. So you go inside there and you forget everything is around you. That's like your safe zone. And when I had trips to the West Bank also, where we also had, as I mentioned, I encountered things in my childhood where I had to be called out from Israeli Jeep military to get out inside the house when they had closures. Or I remember once I was told to get inside the house because they had a closure, and we were not allowed to get out of the house. And then I went from the back door of the house, and I was very young, like very, very young. And I insisted that I want to play with the mud, and I'm gonna go out and play with the mud. And this Israeli jeep goes around and sees me again, and they like talk to me in the speakers, get inside the house, blah, blah, blah. So I get inside, and I'm like mad and like responding to them, but I just get inside the house eventually. But like I have such memories. But I also remember how we were exposed a lot to a Christian, with our Christian identity, not only as a Palestinian. It's not only political or physical harm. It was also the spiritual identity that is hijacked, or there was trial for it to be hijacked in a way. So you go through a lot of internal struggle. Okay, I am a Christian. I want to love my enemy. This is our core messages, right? In Christianity, I want to be peaceful, and reconciliation is a strong part of the faith, right? But you're like, as child and youth growing up, you always get exposed with a lot of challenges in that term also. So you try to find your way. And I remember in one of the encounters, like one of the things that they used to do is like gathering us with other youth, Messianic Jews, Christian youth from the West, from Europe. Some, I don't want to mention specific countries. And then they have camps, and then they talk about Jesus and love and love and love. And then when it comes to us mentioning our identity, then here, no, but we have to love each other and stay in peace. But they created a reality that's not the real reality we live in. So we finish these camps and we go home and like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the reality we live in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, yeah.
And who was making these camps?
Of course, these kind of camps was planted by Christian organizations, sometimes regular organizations.
Are they international organizations from
Some
other
are-
countries, or are they from within Palestine?
Some international in cooperation within Palestine, like established in Palestine, right?
Mhm.
And some of them are peace organizations. And these kind of trends grew a lot in Palestine. And it became like a big thing in Palestine, even for people who seek jobs. Because especially for Christians, seeking jobs became, of course, because of the general economic situation also. It was harder for Christians to find jobs, like the rest of the Palestinians, especially in certain locations, like in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, especially East Jerusalem. It's like jobs are limited, and almost it's known what type of job you will get. NGOs became the one place that everyone was rushing to go to be hired in. Christian NGOs, however, became the Christian youth way to get a job or training and things like that. And Christian organizations also played a role to give trainings and all sorts of programs and empowerment programs to Palestinians in general. Now, and I'm not saying like in general, of course, I'm not saying these that had to involve meeting up with other Israeli or Palestinian youth. Sometimes they had regular development, community support programs, youth programs, children programs. So you could find both.
Yeah. So as a young person attending these Christian camps, you felt that it is creating an alternative reality.
No.
It is diminishing the suffering of the.
It's not the Christian. It's not Christian camps. No, these were something by some Christian organizations or peace building organizations that they try to get people together to talk and to create bridges, right? Some had a questionable agenda. So it wasn't like always comfortable to be in such atmosphere. However, you're young, you're trying to navigate where there is activities. Okay, we go to an activity. This is how it started with the youth.
And how did you feel that it is not responding to reality? Would they, for example, not allow you to speak about your suffering? Or
in a way, you create a zone, like I say a camp, but not Christian camp again. These are different story. You create this different reality for youngsters, right? You take them away from their own even country. Sometimes we go to a different country, right? Abroad, right? Sometimes within, but you have this 4 or 5 days with them, or 4 days with them, and then you give them all these activities, very nice activities. Not only then, at some point you have to talk about your faith, okay, and then you talk about the reconciliation. But when it's expressed in a way, you are expected to accept what is on the ground, right? And that was one of the issues that we faced. I remember having a huge anxiety. Sometimes me and another friend, I remember we were so overwhelmed because even expressing ourselves became overwhelming. Like, but this is me. This is what do you say? How do you say that? The theology that they play with, Christian theology, was changing here. So at some point, I remember going out, and the leader came up, one of the Christian Arabic leaders, right, Palestinian, and we were in tears. We couldn't handle the pressure. It was a lot of pressure. We didn't know what was going on at that point. And but no matter how you try to find your way away from these politics and stuff, you find yourself in the middle of it, because everything is influenced by the current conflict and the politics. So organizations, NGOs, and even some Christian NGOs. Now, some Christian NGOs held on the Palestinian identity. And because there was a stream of such movement that is going on, people who funded that were not like, maybe let's say they had the more Zionist Christian agenda, okay? And Zionist Christian also, they're proud of what they are, and because this is what they believe in, right? So they come with this full energy to fund. And then another stream of Palestinian organization that came up from the ground that supported the Palestinian theology. Especially in East Jerusalem, one of the strongest was Sabila organization, which I actually admire a lot. And in their work, they tried to display this Palestinian theology above the Christians, the living stones also who live in the ground, and how it's affecting Christians of the land, the Eastern Christians. For example, since the conflict started, we lost a lot of people. We were over 20%, something like that. Now we're 1 to 2% only. And more Christians are leaving for some reason or another. Right. And youth, of course, they are like, they represent a large percentage of the Christians in the land. So they're also leaving to find jobs and educational opportunities or better life away from closures and stuff. And when I talk about this, you have to realize also that there is different realities in between our subcultures within. So a few kilometers from Jerusalem, there is a different reality. Within Jerusalem, even youth, Christian youth, if you talk to them, you can get different perspective from people, from youth. Some decided to go with the identity they have now. They don't want to think about it anymore. Okay, I have this document that says whatever it says, that's me. I don't want to think about it anymore.
You're talking about the Israeli document.
Israeli, if you have an Israeli, if you have a Palestinian, if you have in between like me, I don't hold a nationality. Like, it's a tribing document. East Jerusalemites, they don't have a nationality, but it's an Israeli document. that's given to us to navigate our way. But that also has a price. So you're always asked for your identifications. You have to always prove your presence and location of living and all that.
Okay.
Um,
So, Rawan, there is a lot of aspects that we are very interested to cover, and one episode might not be enough. There's all the aspects of living, the daily living in Jerusalem, occupied Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, and also there is the becoming an adult and the opportunities, what choices and opportunities are there for Palestinian youth, and more specifically with your experience, the Christian Palestinian youth. But let's go back and a little bit focus on the Christian youth work.
mm,
So you've had this experience with these camps. You've seen some camps are being politicized for the sake of normalization. Some of them have been suppressing real talk, and they are, kind of separated from reality. They're trying to let you accept the fact of occupation and the fact of oppression that you were living under as a status quo that is to be acceptable. You also mentioned that there is some play on theology, like some maneuvering around Christian theology. So I want to talk now about you becoming an adult and becoming active with Christian youth, and how did you find yourself becoming active and actually trying to express a more indigenous, yani authentic voice of the
right.
Christian youth in Palestine?
Um, First, these camps, let's say it's not only camps, it's programs. It's an organization, present programs. So camps were part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We also, it's different than the Christian. Now I'm going to talk about Christian camps of the authentic Palestinian programs that we led later on. It's one of these streams that I told you went against, right? Or not necessarily against because they want to be against. The focus became, how can I strengthen the body of Christ that we still have in the Holy Land, because we're losing it, right? We're it's weakened, it's fragile and fractioned in between what? Like we have checkpoints, we have separated East Jerusalem, then Ramallah and maybe the West Bank from the north, like from northern part of the country, like Christian parishes who live in Nazareth, for example, or in the north of the country. So that became the question. When I went through a lot of these pressures, just like me, like all other youth. Some people, as I told you, accepted it. They wanted peace. They wanted to see dialogue, how that goes. We never refused dialogue. We believe in reconciliation and peace and love. And that's our message as a Christian. Now you live in that mentality, and then you face, as Christians of the land, theology that's different than the theology presented by Zionist Christians of the West, right? Or not, sorry, not even the West. Whoever carries that message with them, like Christians who believe in that message. So Christian of the land theology focuses on Christ from Jerusalem, from the land, who radiate love and peace to all. As he said, he came to give life abundantly to others, right? And that's our message. This is how we see it. We should give life to others before ourselves, abundantly, without any conditions. When I came in a young age, got my BA from Chicago, from here, and then came back 2005, that I had a break. And that 3 years or 4 years period, I realized how much pressure I was living in. How come people move here without IDs? Or how come, why wouldn't my people have this peace of mind? Christians of the land, I had a lot of urge within my heart, maybe a calling, that how can we bring that peace to our people, like our youth and children, let's say. And these youth and children are becoming, will be our families. So as soon as I went back home, I discovered like they had more organized youth ministry work than before, because The youth ministry that I served in, it's under the Latin Patriarchate umbrella, but it served not only the Catholic children, all Christian children were welcomed, right? Because we're little in numbers, and so everyone was welcomed. And the Patriarch Michel Sabah brought it to the country as an idea, and then it was forming, and it formed a little bit, but it wasn't formed in structure because on full structure. There was some kind of structure because of the conflict, closures, intifada, the first intifada, second intifada. There was no way for us to even conduct these. When I came back 2005, the structure was there. It was like this peace period, so people started to get together. But still, I saw that there is a lot of gaps and need to volunteer, a need to lead. I went to several meetings. Meetings were okay. Parish priests will be present, leaders will be present, and youth will be present. Usually, they have them in groups, like children, and then secondary, then young adults. Then this is how it goes. Then workers alone, young workers. So I just took the initiative. I started to work with the Christian organization that later I did not go with their terms of after 6 years of working with them. So, but working with them exposed me more to the youth ministry, and I became involved, and then I started to volunteer on my own time to conduct these meetings weekly for the youth and children in a parish. From there, it just, because there was a need, my involvement got more and more serious, and it was all volunteer. And at some point, of course, I finished working with this organization. I went with human rights, and human rights also exposed me. The thing is, my exposure with human rights and the previous one with all these neglected societies also, and youth, Palestinian, Christian, Muslim, also gave me an enlightenment to see on the ground what's going on with people, right? And then human rights took me that to international level also. So I became one of those who saw the ground and still involved in the ground. And now I'm involved internationally, and I'm seeing the contradictions, right? But at the same time, there is a need within my Christian society. I took a break for 1 year or so for inner conflicts also, conflicts are everywhere. And suddenly I became God's will that I was offered the General Secretary position. And as a first woman lead for this position. That's not transitional. There was one who took it transitional few months, but then didn't continue. So I took the lead, and it was a huge challenge. But then the structure needed work. And of course, with in alignment with the church, the patriarch, the general chaplain. At that time, it was Father Bashar Fawadle. And from there, we created this team to create a new structure. Now, this new structure, with my work with the youth ministry now, I felt so responsible that all my free time later, after human rights work, was with the ministry. So I did this structure that focused on how I can, not only me, of course, it has a history from the church and other people who worked hard for that also, and it builds up. The idea was, how can we maintain our youth to stay in Palestine, how we can strengthen the Christian youth, how we can strengthen their capabilities and empowerment enough to be part of the society, and how can we partner with the government, like Palestinian government sector and the NGOs, to mingle them in the workforce, in economics, in politics of the country. All that was important to us, not only the spiritual part, and of course, the spiritual part later, how we can strengthen that theology. You are a Palestinian Christian, and you can be that without being involved or dragged to other ideologies that is far from who you are. Not forgetting that also the the ideology of, not the ideology, the Christian, maybe ideology if you want to say it, or the spirituality of the Eastern Christian carries a lot of messages. It's different. It carries authentic life and experience and traditions of Christ, like of people, Christian, like when that was born, when Christianity was born 2,000 years ago. So we still have these. How can we work with the youth not to like lose it, and build them up?
So did you find challenges in creating this, going in that direction
Of
and
course,
activating? What challenges did you find?
yeah.
And did you find other organizations that were helpful when the ideology, was more aligned to the Christian Zionist ideas? Did you find that when you're not aligned to them, that they stopped supporting or they stand
You know
against you?
what happened? We are fully aware of that ideology, right? That we don't have to focus on it anymore. What I had in heart is just to focus on what I need now to build with these youth and children, and that's all. And everything else falls in place. So I shifted the focus to not what we are facing from outside in. I shifted the focus on within. What do we have right now? Where we want them to be. So when we start working in the direction, and things started to fall in place, volunteers started to come. We ended up with 55 volunteer on a national level, 9 groups, 12 groups, and then people who wanted to support us, like to fund us, they came in on their own, at the end of because after working so hard with the youth and the youth themselves, it just gives them the space. Actually, Christians fall, unfortunately, let's say, into a cocoon mood, you know, with all these struggles and with getting less in numbers, even within the society, the Palestinian society. Because it's all, survival, right, mechanism. Even Palestinians did that, even Christians did that. So you felt that they were closing up, right? And they reached a point where, come on, we're doing everything on our own. We have our own Christian organizations. We are most of health system, educational system, because Christians were good in that. Like, so it's our, like, they go only to Christian education systems. They became more into a closing circle. The challenge was like, how can I do that and open up to the society? Okay, we share different faiths, but at the same time, there was a responsibility over our shoulder to create awareness of who we are to our own society also. So we started to work on that. Making partnership, how I can express myself freely as a Christian. How can I be involved? And there was a lot of actually support, let's say, from some ministries, Palestinian ministries when needed. So they supported us, and they wanted that cause because they were also they were interested in the Christian youth involvement. So that was one of the main issues, and I did face some challenges with that, and the leaders with me at the beginning, because they got used to a certain maybe path, and it just opened new horizon. But it wasn't only opening up to Palestinian Muslim society, it's like also opening up to other Christian parishes. You talk about Christian parishes in the West Bank, stopped communicating with the Christian parishes within Jerusalem and the north. And they started to build up these ideas. Oh, but they are, they live in a more westernized now way of living. We're not like, no, they have closed mentality, the other ones. I'm like, no. So one of the things we worked on is getting them back together. And it worked well. and youth got to know each other. Even
Did you find resistance against doing that from the Israeli authorities?
the Israeli authorities in that point, the resistance we found as a regular Palestinian, which means when we wanted to do an activity inside Israel, Jerusalem, whatever in the north, we needed permits. We needed permits for the bus and for each person in the bus, and that was a challenge. Usually, sometimes we would cancel activities or invite the other ones to come in because it's easier. So that kind of checkpoint and restrictions.
Just the normal
affected.
restrictions and
That
the
was,
apartheid system
yeah.
that you're used to. But
But
did you see any additional obstacles, specifically because your efforts are trying to unite
yeah,
Palestinian Christians?
well, maybe not directly to me. I've never faced it directly, no. But for example, one of the things that we face when we gather together in our religious, like Palm Sunday, we walk in large numbers in Jerusalem to reach the old city and the church and stuff like that. And I remember one time, the Christian youth were attacked by special forces. And because maybe some of the youth presented a Palestinian flag at the beginning, although we took it out and we continued. Some of the Christian hymns, which is important, it goes back to many, many years ago. And it's like Arabic, chanted. And it talks about the land. And it's a Christian hymns,
Yes.
So we got into trouble sometimes, but then it was all controlled and, of course, informed to the higher hierarchy of the church to deal with. And I'm fully aware that the hierarchy of the church also needs to be political in their way of dealing with things, right? With all parties, right?
So even Eastern Christian hymns in Arabic had some problematic, conflict with the Israeli authorities.
Yeah, if they don't understand the whole lyrics, or they just feel they maybe they hear the word Jerusalem or something, or it might cause a kind of a threat because it's generational heritage. You can say, yeah. But
I want to ask you a question. So we're going to talk a little bit about Christian Zionism, and this is a big topic today. It's kind of a wake-up call for internationally, just like the genocide in Gaza has actually brought the issue of the Palestinian struggle to the whole world, and there is more awareness of it. More Jews are aware of Zionism, and more Jews are anti-Zionism than ever before. Also, it's bringing awareness to Christian Zionism, what used to be called in the past evangelical Zionism, and today is Christian Zionism, very politicized version of Christianity that maybe has more power behind Zionism than even Jewish Zionism itself. There's a lot of awareness today. There's a lot of awakening to this fact. I just heard a Christian Zionist priest, I don't know what exactly, a preacher, she was saying that after visiting, we've continuously visited Palestine and raised money to grow trees in Israel, and that's what we've been trained to do in the church as part of our faith. She said, when I went to Palestine, it was the first time that I realized that Palestine is not just a term in the Bible. She thought that Palestine was just an old term in the Bible that no longer existed. And when she started seeing in the streets of Israel, and I'm talking before October 7th, and when she started seeing Free Palestine in some places, she started asking, what are they talking about? And she discovered for the first time that there's something called Palestine that exists today. Imagine how much disconnection from reality some of these churches create. So We want to talk a little bit about that. I want to bring a story that was narrated by the famous Israeli historian Ellen Poppy. He said that there are letters that were written in 1905 from Gaza. It was signed by a Gaza Imam and a Gaza Jewish uh, leader, Hacham, yani a Jewish rabbi. Because there were Jews in Gaza. There were Jewish Gazans, Palestinian Jewish Gazans living in Gaza before 1929. So they said here they wrote a letter to the Istanbul, to the Turkish government, complaining about Christian missionaries that are trying to spread hate between Muslims and Jews in Gaza. And they also complained about Zionists who are trying to separate the community. So this is an old effort for Zionism to split the communities within Palestine. Now we come 100 years after that. Are you an eyewitness to that?
To the separation that they try to cause?
Yes.
Of course we are. We are. Of course, I just shared some of the stories quickly. But also, I agree with you. It is politicized, of course, because for us Christians of the East, the Christian message is practically love, peace, reconciliation in all levels, on all levels, right? When one of these is broken, when violence gets in, when then that's not representing it, Christianity, right? That's on one hand. A lot of work has been done, as I said, within communities to do that, within Christians, within each other, like denominational wise. But I noticed something very interesting for me. I've seen that during these past years, how the Christian resilience was even bold and right on the front lines before, like in the first Intifada, say, and second. Then it just went a little bit smoother, but did not stop. A lot of people are still doing that in peaceful ways and stuff, and they have roles. But but I feel this generation, the new generation, it's different now. They're out of the box, and I have a strong belief, and I believe in them. Even the youth I worked with, I've seen how they grow to be. They will create a strong families that connect to their roots, no matter where they are. Now, under all these pressures, when you want to discuss one of the things that also has to be addressed is the not even dual reality. It's like various realities that you live in I'm gonna focus as a Christian in Palestine. You ask me how was my youth days and my Christian perspective when it was in East Jerusalem or in Palestine in total. When you start your day and you cross checkpoints and you have to do, you are faced with this soldier reality in front of your eyes all the time, most of the time, and some regulations that are not easy for you to use, if like in governmental terms, let's say, if you wanted some documents or something, like I have different document, right? So I have to go with that. But at the same time, you go to work and you have to work with them, right? As a Christian, you have to go out and work with the Muslims and work with the Israelis, right? And in that term, as Israelis, you have to deal with people with dignity, no matter what. They're in front of you. Now they're co-workers. In the morning, they were a soldier in the checkpoint. So these dual realities or multi-reality that you live in creates like a very weird reality to express. Who are you to me? Are you my enemy? Are you my friend, my co-worker? And you can become all of that. And we're okay with it. So it's that kind of coping that you cannot find in other conflicts in the world. It's so different, so different. Even within their communities, there is people who are really now working for breaking the silence, talking, trying to maintain social relation. There is people like that from the Israelis, right side, but it's all contradicting. When it comes to planting Christian Zionism, now also that term is not, it's wrong, I feel nowadays, to express it in that sense. Because Zionism is not only Christian, it's spread. It's anyone who believes in that theology is a Zionist, and they are proud of it, whether they were Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, or whatever religion they are, or ethnicity they are in. So you can find different realities within that. But as a Christian, you have to keep all these things in mind. Okay, even within your society, if you did not create awareness of your own existence and who you are strongly, you're okay. Everything is good. We don't have persecution from the Muslim, as some people try to display. No, we don't have. We have good relation. Our elders from old days, they always had this maintained. The elders, how the rule of the elders. So they had good relations, right? They always balance things if conflicts arises very quickly to maintain peace and reconciliation between each other. I think the problem is the lack of awareness sometimes in some areas, because the Christian, mainly Christians, the higher percentage of Christians, I think they are centered more around East Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Ramallah area, more than the northern Palestinian cities, and in the north, like then it goes. But so people who live in majority of Christians, they know them more, so there's no problem. But if you talk about Christian presence in that sense, so it also faces that kind of reality. So all this thoughts and exhaustion of like, how can I maintain my cool? It's like a stream of water. Like the Christians are like this. Sometimes I think about it that way. A stream of water, calmly, in between all these things that are happening. And as a theology that it holds, and to keep holding it, and to be strong enough to say the word of truth, like Jesus did. He was the first revolutionist, right? He was a revolutionist, but he did it in his own term. He gave his life for life. Are we courageous enough to give our life for life in peaceful ways, not expecting anything in return, and just be living stone? That's a responsibility that we need the courage to keep living, There is maybe I can point maybe to different, or there is a question or something.
Yeah, because we are almost getting to an hour of our interview, I'd like to open it up to questions and comments. So Dr. Ali, if you would like to start with commenting. Sorry. Dr. Ali, if you'd like to comment, please.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Rawan, in fact, I have a couple of questions. I don't have any comment. First, we know very well that the threats against Palestinians, Christian or Muslims, I don't differentiate, are enormous. We know that the Israelis, how they act to cut our roots, to try to cancel or delete our identity, how they are trying to Zionize everything around. As an eyewitness, you were living down there in Jerusalem. How much do you think that the Israelis were successful in this battle to cut our identity? And on the other hand, how much you think that the resilience of the Palestinians were really successful in both ways?
It's I think it goes both in whole Palestine, right? As Christian as a Muslim. As I said, now they actually were successful for some time and at some level to create some sense of, some people accepted that reality, you know? Some youth wanted that to live in peace and just forget about everything else because they cannot handle this pressure anymore, right? But when it came to real discussions and when we're faced with real encounters that tackle our identity, out of nowhere, our identity comes back to life, you know? So I think the Palestinian resilience has never died, you know? It took different forms. It accommodated with different, according to what at that stage, what conflict they are facing. But it never died, you know? And it's stronger than ever nowadays. Even with these youth who say, I want to live in peace, and they had nothing to do with any activities, right? For example, as Christian Palestinian, whenever we have this, within our religious celebrations, you know, we have our tradition, we go in large numbers in the streets and we do our thing. If we were faced with any trial to cut that down, we go crazy, you know? No, we want to, we represent ourselves strongly, and thus any Palestinian. I see one of the points that did not help a lot is that on the surface, things looked okay. In times of no real conflict, obvious conflict, violent conflict, people and everyone thought everything is okay. But things were not dealt with from within. From within, things continued to go, like the programs I was talking about, that not a lot of people talk about. You know, these programming of ideologies, of how things must go, these kind of streams, the under the table streams that are not tackled much, that thought to create a difference in that balance. But what I see now is I feel like the resilience is still there. We don't have maybe the enough tools like the world has, like strength in that term. But no, we're
How do you
going strong.
see, Rawan? How do you see the future of the Christian youth in Palestine?
It concerns me that the number of immigration is increasing, not only for Christian, of course, the Palestinian immigration, but because we're now less than 1-2%, our immigration shows more, right? So I feel that more and more families are withdrawing or, leaving the country, and a lot of work still has to be done for that. For example, in Gaza now, 900 after the missing of the church, and now a lot of people are out. Maybe we're left, according to what I got to know, about 500 only now, maybe in Gaza now. And that's recent, right? My town that I talked about at the beginning, a lot of families are out now in different parts of the world. So the presence is, it is in a way endangered. I mean, that's unfortunate, but yeah.
Okay, given the current situation that's happening in Gaza, were you in the region during the beginning of the war?
I was in Palestine.
Yeah. Tell us about your experience, also your eyewitness on that and the atmosphere that was surrounding it.
We're used to this sudden rising conflicts. Okay, in one night and another, like you wake up and everything is changed again. But this time was different. Like it hit us deep. It cut us deep. You know, it wakened up a lot of things. You know, because it actually reflected how unstable the situation is and living there is. You know, of course, it brought a lot of emotions. Most of it, like, you know, you sit there and there's nothing, you're not able to do anything really to just maintain these lives, you know. And I'm talking about lives now, you know, about human life, you know, how precious it must be and how cheap it is becoming, you know. When I dealt with international lobbying, I've seen how the techniques go, you know, but I know how long it can take. And then you look at the ground and you see how fast it's you know, destroying. And it
Okay,
Okay.
I think we're good. Can you hear us, Dr.
Can I
Ali?
ask you something else? Yeah, I have one more question to Rawan. Rawan,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I
One
heard
second.
you mentioned during. Can you hear me?
Hey, doctor, can you hear us? Yes, he can. Okay, yes. Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
okay. So the last conflict, it created a lot of instability and
I
emotional
don't know. Can you hear me now?
burden, mental burden, and all that.
Yes, I can hear you, doctor. Can you hear us? Oh, it looks like he can't hear us.
And your voice goes and comes.
Test, test.
Can you hear me now, Rawan?
I,
No.
can you hear me?
Yes, she can hear you. All right. Uh, let's put. Let's end the episode with a final message because we're losing the sound, Rawan. So maybe we'll have other episodes to talk about, um, you know, your further experience in Palestine, and also with working with the youth in Palestine, and also your personal experience as a living person with all the complexities of being an East Jerusalem person. You know, all the red lines that you have to cross, and the cross points, and the procedures that makes it difficult to live there, and you're always being pushed to leave just with the regulations of everyday life. So perhaps we'll have another episode to talk about that. But uh, if we can leave with one, just a final thought about Christian youth in Palestine, their resilience, and the threats. I want a little message for the Christian youth in Palestine who are watching us today. And also, I want a message from you to the Christian youth that are in America, that sometimes are being fed the idea of Israel in a not a real way.
I can say something. First of all, for my Christian youth in Palestine, I trust in them, and I wish they always will find the strength to face whatever they're facing now, strengthening their faith and staying to be like remaining to be the living stone, because we need that. And I trust their judgment and their choices. For youth in America, just open up, be to open up to hear us Christians from the Eastern Christians, let's say, because there is lots of stories that needs to be told as faith-wise. So if you listen to your faith and your heart, you will find that Christ is living within us, and we have to reflect it in our daily life, and that means love and supporting only peace and love without hurting any human being is our message. And to be revolutionist in Jesus' way, to look how he acted, um, and carry his footsteps on.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Rawan. And Dr. Ali, do you have any more thing to say?
No, I just had a couple of questions to Rawan. Next time, whenever we have another episode, I can ask her.
Yes, and we'll make sure that there's no technical difficulties in the next episode. Thanks for everyone who watched this episode. We will continue in the history of Arab-Israeli conflict with more episodes to come. So stay with us, and thank you for you being with us today.